It is once again the G1 CLIMAX 33 recap and review show here on the MrWarrenHayes Show podcast channel, wherever it is you decide to listen to what I do. By the way, I'm MrWarrenHayes. Thank you very much for being here. We're going to be reviewing, talking about the results of Night 11, which occurred on August 1st, 2023 of the G1 CLIMAX 33. So, before we get into it, I'm just going to remind you very tangentially, just very simply, hey, leave a like and a subscription here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes if that's where you're watching it, or a review or a rating over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is you listen to your podcast. That kind of stuff would help out a great deal. And why not both? It doesn't have to be either or. Both or all four or as many times as you can. It's the kind of stuff that helps out quite a bit. But listen, we're going to get right into the nitty gritty here because there's a lot to talk about this match, about this show, Night 11, which, by the way, is the final combined block night for blocks A and B. Now, the next two nights that the next time that we see A and B block action, they will be on completely separate nights. The same thing is going to happen with C and D, block C and D tomorrow when they are split as well, but we'll talk about that later. So final night of combined action, and so there's only one night left. Lots of critical things were happening on this show today. A show which overall I think was better than Night 10, where Night 10 I thought was just a bunch of stuff, just matches and nothing special about it. This kind of felt like this, but there's a couple of really cool saving graces here. A couple of matches that I will be in position to recommend for you without any problems. But hey, let's get to the results first and foremost, like we usually do. Block A had Hikuleo defeating Kaito Kiyomiya. Red Narita defeated Chase Owens. SANADA defeated Gabe Kid. And Yota Tsuji defeated Shota Umino. Now, as it stands for Block B, we had Great Okan going over YOSHI-HASHI. El Phantasmo defeating Taichi. Tanga defeating Will Ospreay. And in the main event, Kazuchika Okada put away KENTA for not only the night, but the tournament. Oh, are we talking about eliminations just yet? Yeah, we shouldn't. We shouldn't talk about eliminations just yet, but we will, but soon. Let's get to it. Let's start talking about the matches. Of course, we're going to start with A block again tonight. Kaito Kiyomiya. This was the first match of the show, actually. Kaito Kiyomiya losing to Hikuleo. Look, when you look at the score, you look at the points on the board. Especially if you're watching right now on YouTube or on Spotify, you can see the current standings of the block. It makes a lot of sense leading into the final night to have Kiyomiya lose. Now, does it make a lot of sense for Kiyomiya to lose to Hikuleo, where I was absolutely convinced that there was no way that former GHC world champion would lose to one of the lower mid-card guys of New Japan, despite the fact that he's very tall. But, Gato, he likes himself, his big monsters. He likes his big guys in his tournaments just to throw some monkey wrenches, rack up some surprise points. Well, this is what's happening with Hikuleo right now. He's defying my soft elimination from quite a few nights ago. I thought this guy was through, but he's, at least mathematically still in the conversation. There's still everything pointing against him moving into the playoffs. But if anything in this show here, we're going to say, I'm already getting into block analysis here, but because everything's intertwined after this show. But as for the match itself, look, Hikuleo over the past 2-3 nights, he's been showing a lot more confidence, I guess would be the word. And I there's a little more of a spark in what he's doing. I think it's a lot more interesting. I think his work has not been as tedious as it has the capacity to be. How about that? I kind of liked it and thought it was a good opener, good little opener. Kiyomiya, did everything he could, but I guess he was just overpowered here. And again, I find it kind of strange, just on the political level, for Noah to say, yeah, you know what? But maybe Noah doesn't give a shit. Maybe this is adding a little more credence to the idea that Kaito is on his way out of Noah. I don't know. We haven't talked about that in a while because, we're in the midst of the tournament. There hasn't been many signs since the lead up. It's hard to say. Maybe he is. Maybe the prophecy will come full circle and he is indeed, planning a soft exit from Noah. I don't know. Look, Hikuleo in a pretty good effort. Lands the spinning power slam and the choke slam for the win. Good for him. Another 6 points. He still stays in the conversation, defying my own projections. Red Narita defeated Chase Owens. This was Narita's first G1 win. I thought this was, it was your classic, heel in control match here. This is what Chase Owens did. He maintained control throughout the entire tournament, the entire match here, which is, not quite as energetic. He did it very, very old school, so that, when Red Narita's comebacks, his hope spots in his comeback were going to happen, did get the crowd energized and on their feet. But it didn't quite work that way, and I thought the match fell a little flat. I think the work was fine. I think this was okay. I think this was pretty good. Well, not pretty good. I thought it was good. Let's dial it back a little. I thought it was good, but there's something about Narita right now that just isn't connecting and it's not working. And he wasn't able to rally crowd support behind him. I think he's playing too much of the straight lace, and he doesn't have the aura. Look, if I know this is a tired comparison, don't get me wrong, but if he is supposed to be Shibata Jr., Shibata had an aura about him. He had a thing about him where he just came in, acted like a killer, looked like a killer, and would kill you. Figuratively speaking, of course. But that's what he'd do. In these circumstances here, with Narita is lacking that powerful aura that I think is just an intangible thing. That is just something that, a guy like Shibata has, a guy like Ishii has. They just have this look, this aura about them, and you're like, oh, okay, this guy's about to fuck someone up. But it's not the case here. Not with Ren, quite unfortunately. So, we were, a bunch of us were talking earlier today, we're talking about all of this today, and maybe it's about time we start talking about the Reiwa 2 Musketeers as opposed to Narita. Look, I came into this tournament telling you all, if there's one guy who needs a strong performance here, both in ring and in points, it's Narita, because the two other guys have so many intangibles going for them that he needs to come out. He needs to convince the work rate crowd that he's the real deal at the very least. And he didn't manage to do that. Even with his lackluster performance in points, I would say his G1 has been lackluster overall, and he's clearly the outlier between the three that the company wants to build on. So, look, it is what it is. The match happened. Narita avoids a jewel heist, and he locks in a Cobra twist to get Chase Owens to tap. So that's fine. Owens did what he had to do. I think Narita didn't live up to his end of the bargain in this match. It's my overall thought. SANADA defeated Gabe Kidd. I thought this match ruled. I am slowly becoming a Gabe Kidd guy. I think what he brings, the energy, like that rage, that fired up anger that he's got, is a proposition that doesn't exist in New Japan, and it feels fresh. It feels different, I know. And look, even Alex Coughlin is trying to emulate it, and he can't do it as well because there is something very real about Gabe Kidd's fire that he's channeling into what he does. He came out first, so he didn't get the jump on the world champion here, but he's still tearing barricades down. He's still scaring the shit out of the audience. He's doing his entrance through the audience and flipping them off. Like, his whole aura, his whole thing is, you don't know what I'm going to do next. I can come at you from any which way, and this rules. And this energy that he had, Kidd, carried this entire match, because up until this point, solid work, but nothing with that ever hit like a second or third gear. And sometimes you get worried with SANADA matches. I do. I still do. You get worried with SANADA matches because, he's not necessarily the most energetic final stretch guy there is. But this was physical and spiteful by, just some great spiteful work by Kidd. You even see him in the ring draping the world championship over his shoulder. You're looking at it and it's like, okay, I can, we're manifesting something here that could absolutely go the right way. He absolutely could be a top gaijin for this company if they decide to push him properly, and if he follows suit, of course. Got all sorts of great moves here. No, I really, really liked. This match. I think it's probably one of my favorite SANADA matches of the tournament. And Gabe Kidd delivers another good one. What do you want from me? It's been good. And then the last match of A block, the second to last match of the evening, we had Yota Tsuji going over Shota Umino in the final match of the Reiwa 3 Musketeers. Really, it's the Reiwa 2. And this was my match of the night. Unquestionably, this match was awesome. It was tremendous. It was fantastic. Great. Greater than great. These guys had a perfect build to an absolutely electric final stretch. Testing each other out, throwing moves at each other. And then a little later, the final stretch kicks in when these two guys start laying into each other. They start to slug it out, hockey fight style, and it rules. And they're just laying bombs on each other, and Tsuji knocks Umino down with a headbutt. Just fantastic stuff. Get an avalanche Spanish fly by Yota Tsuji. That's right. And the huge Falcon Arrow. We're 2 minutes left into the match. Shota Umino stomps the head off of a spear attempt by Yota Tsuji, which was amazing. We get a neck breaker that follows, a cradle DDT. But 1 minute left, we get a spear by Tsuji for the win. I got nothing bad to say about this match. This absolutely ruled. And this is Yota Tsuji's, by the way, I'm sure you heard commentary saying that this was the first time he's defeated Shota Umino in singles action. So that was a big deal for him. And he wanted that so bad that he even tossed Umino out of the ring. He wanted all the spotlight on him. Look, I thought this was spectacular. I thought it was a great pairing, a great fight between the two principals of these three musketeers who absolutely showed up. And Tsuji has been showing up every single time. So that was fantastic. But Umino, where was I at the start of the year? I don't know if, maybe you're new here to the MrWarrenHayes show podcast stuff. So just to clue you in, at the start of the year, I was completely off of the Shota Umino train. After that egg he laid with Tetsuya Naito, I was like, what is this kid doing? If he can't have a great match with Tetsuya Naito, what are we even doing here? And he had a very rocky start too. But as the year progressed, like, this is a guy who took any type of criticism he received. I'm not saying that I had anything to do with this. I don't have that pretension. But he took all of the criticism that he received and he doubled down and he worked his ass off to get better. Shota Umino has had an absolutely fantastic tournament. Delivered consistently every night. Good to great matches. Every single night of this tournament. I loved it. I loved this match. And it's crazy that just a few months ago, I was shrugging my shoulders. Like, I don't get it. I don't see how this is going. But a couple of months later, maybe talking to Mox, I don't know what it took, but something clicked, and it's clicking. And he's confident. I think he's feeling it more. I think he's also, his moveset doesn't feel all over the place like it was either. I think he's focusing on his strengths here. He's focusing on things that work. Great match by two guys who are supposed to be the future of this company. And I'll tell you what, these two guys are only going to get better. This is the thing that's wild. As great as this was, and as good as these dudes are, they're just going to get better. This is crazy to me. We really are watching some history right now. And here's another thing that added to this match. The time limits. Since there have been so many draws, and especially in Block A, where I believe all the draws in the tournament have happened in Block A except one, as we're getting to 1 minute left, because this match almost went the distance, right? Like over 19 minutes. Cage match has it at 19:20. It almost went time again. And so this becomes a possibility. This becomes plausible moving forward. It becomes plausible when you see these matches. You're like, well, they might just go to time here. Well, I don't know. They didn't, but it was a possibility. So if we look at the standings for Block A right now, SANADA up still at the tippity top at 12. He just might sweeping. He just might end up sweeping here. Kaito Kiyomiya. Here's the thing. Kaito Kiyomiya, Shota Umino, Hikuleo all tied at 6. Gabriel Kidd and Yota Tsuji at 5 points apiece. And then Chase Owens and Ren Narita are officially out of the tournament with Umino with Umino and Hikuleo scoring wins, with Hikuleo scoring a win and Yota Tsuji as well. Mathematically, Chase Owens and Ren Narita are both done with the tournament. If we want to talk about this real quickly, this is all happening because Hikuleo scored a win and got himself up to 6 points because on the final night of Block A, which is on August 5th, Shota Umino and Hikuleo are fighting one-on-one. So one of these two guys has to make it to 8 points. One of these two guys is going to make it to 8, or at the very least 7, right? If we're still in the draw scenarios, which again is something that in recent G1s you wouldn't consider draw scenarios all this much, but in this block here you have to. But at the very least, both of these guys are going to finish at 7 points. Owens and Narita are both at 4 points apiece. So even if they win their next match, mathematically they cannot overcome either Shota Umino or Hikuleo. Because at the very least, they're scoring 7 points. And if Kiyomiya wins his match, well, at the very least draws, he'll be bare minimum 7. He'll be bare minimum 7. And if I'm not mistaken, his final match on August 5th, there we go, is against Ren Narita. So even if Ren Narita were to defeat Kaito Kiyomiya, he'd tie him. So again, Hikuleo and Shota Umino, one of these guys is moving away with, at the very least, an extra point. There's no way Narita and Chase Owens are making it out of the block. Now, I am soft eliminating Yota Tsuji and Gabriel Kidd. They are fighting their last match together, one-on-one, on August 5th. So if either guy wins, they're up to 7 points, which still mathematically keeps them in contention. And unless Hikuleo and Shota Umino end with a draw, they still have a chance. Unless Shota Umino and Hikuleo draw, these guys are out of the tournament as well. But there's still the possibility that they might draw, which would bring a whole bunch of guys at 7 points. It's probably the scenario that's not going to happen, which is why I'm soft eliminating them. I don't think we're going to end up with a wacky 4-way or even a 5-way draw situation here. I don't think so. I think, you know what I think? I think the clear path here is Shota Umino scores his 8 points. I think Kiyomiya is going to lose to Narita on the last night, and Umino is going to move forward. I think this is what we're doing. I think Shota Umino qualifies for the playoffs. Otherwise, the other thing, the other situation here, because the other situation here is, if Kiyomiya wins, he goes up to 8. But if I'm not mistaken, Kiyomiya lost to Hikuleo. That's right. So if Hikuleo wins against Shota Umino, that brings him up to 8. If Kiyomiya wins against Narita, that brings him up to 8, but Hikuleo has the tiebreaker. Now, that would be the wildest scenario, and frankly, I've told y'all from the start, this tournament was going to be unpredictable, and this block is very hard to predict, and I would not be surprised if, at this point, if Hikuleo makes it to the playoffs. I don't think so. I think the safe bet is Shota Umino versus Hikuleo because they're fighting each other on the last night. Anyway, I still think Shota's the safer bet here. But it could be just a bad tournament for the Reiwa 3. I don't know. Look, I don't know what... It's a very tight race yet. There's only 2 guys who are clearly eliminated. Everyone else still holds a chance. But SANADA's qualified. He's going to the playoffs. So we're fighting for the runner-up spot here. So there we go. So that's what's happening for Block A. B block time starts off with YOSHI-HASHI, Great-O-Khan defeating YOSHI-HASHI. So I think one of the things that differentiated Night 11 from Night 10 was that everyone who was in contention for points, let me say that again. Everyone who was looking for points to stay alive, to stay in contention in the block, were working really hard to make it happen. And it showed, right? Great-O-Khan was already eliminated, but YOSHI-HASHI was still in the running. If he was to score a win, he would still probably be in the conversation. He would have went up to 4 points. But this is where his tournament ends in a match which really cooked. We're talking about. I've just been talking about how good of a tournament Shota Umino had, but we cannot set aside the consistent work of YOSHI-HASHI, who always has his working boots on. I say it every time, but this will probably be the last time we're going to talk about him in any meaningful capacity because he is eliminated from the tournament officially now. He works hard every single time he gets out there. No one really expects him to win the tournament, but everyone always expects him to bring the best out of his opponent. And get the best out of himself at the same time. Like, this is a guy who never really takes a night off. And this was the same case here. I thought this was a very good match. I thought this was very good. Match really cooked at some point as well. Lots of back and forth, especially after the Kumigoroshi that YOSHI-HASHI lands. He runs into an eliminator by Great Khan for the win. But, you know, he wrestled consistently, wrestled like he needed to win. Great pace, energetic, super dynamic exchanges. You know, if I were to rate this, I'd give it maybe a 3.5, maybe a 3.25 and 3 3/4 if I'm feeling happy. And in that vicinity, you know. Super strong match. I really liked it. But unfortunately, YOSHI-HASHI's G1 dreams once again have been extinguished. Then we got El Phantasmo versus Taichi. Again, this match felt important because of the points. You know, Taichi knew what kind of position he was in. He was at 6 points. If he were to win here, he'd be up at the top of the conversation, hanging out there with Will Ospreay. Fortunately, that's not what happened. And El Phantasmo as well, you know, knew that this was a critical match for him. So he had to get in here and, you know, chop his way through and pull out as many moves as he could to put Taichi away, because Taichi was ready, landing axe bombers and dangerous suplexes. They're in and out of their finishers towards the end. Taichi is trying to land a Gato clutch, can't quite do it. We get some kicks, some fighting spirit, and another Gato clutch gets the win for ELP, who feels like he's got to sneak one out because he's not going to land this with one of his typical finishers. So unfortunately, that also ends Taichi's tournament, but this was a match that was wrestled because, again, the points were important. I thought this was very good. It keeps ELP's it keeps ELP alive. It's good. It's good stuff. It was a good match. Then we had the surprise of the night where Tanga Loa defeated Will Ospreay. I thought this was pretty good. You know, this was not a Will Ospreay pace type of match. We were working a Tanga Loa pace match here. Is it because of the knee injury, so on and so forth? I couldn't tell you. I'm not there. But, you know, this was not your fast-paced Will Ospreay match, though. Tanga Loa was doing his best to keep up with Ospreay's offense. Lands a blue thunder bomb. Get a series of strikes in. Tanga Loa turns Ospreay inside out with some lariats as well. Ospreay lands an Oz cutter. He goes for a pescado. It's countered by a strike on the floor. And then Tanga Loa shoves Will Ospreay off the rails like 5 rows into the audience kind of thing, right? And he does a spear through the chairs. The referee starts the count. Tanga Loa starts to make his way back to the ring, but it doesn't get back in. He stays on the outside of the apron, and this is important. This is critical because, as you know, if you roll back into the ring, it resets the count. But he doesn't want to reset the count. He just speared Ospreay, and he's waiting on the side of the ring. Ospreay makes his way back. He's at ringside at the 18 count, and as he gets to the ringside, Tanga Loa spears him on the floor and immediately bounces right back into the ring, gets the count out victory. A win is a win. And Ospreay got suckered here. Fantastic stuff. Like, the match in and about itself was well worked. It was all right. Don't get me wrong. It's, it's not a special, anything special, but what a creative finish. What a good tactical finish to this match where Ospreay didn't get pinned. He was just outsmarted, got outdone. But the match itself, physical, good. And Will, because of this loss, is in a bit of a pickle now. Because if he loses to El Phantasmo, he's not qualifying. Had Will won this match, there would have been no point to the next night of Block B, because Okada would have been up there, Ospreay would have qualified, and at this point in the game, Phantasmo wouldn't be able to advance. Like Ospreay winning would have meant the end of the block officially, and with Okada and Ospreay both qualifying and moving forward. Great finish. And then the main event, we had Kazuchika Okada versus KENTA. And I was hoping that KENTA would have his working boots on like he did with Ospreay a few nights ago in a very good match. This was not the case. I was really hoping for it, especially since KENTA was doing so much stalling at first. I like a good stall. I really do. So I enjoyed that part. It doesn't bother me. I think it's a great heel tactic, especially for a guy who relies a lot on shtick now for his heel stuff to get over. So it's, for me, wasn't that big a deal. But eventually, they do lock up, and where KENTA is taking things very slow. He's in control. He does a DDT and a neck breaker, and he keeps the pace really slow. He's grinding the head. He's doing, headlocks and whatnot. And we're 10 minutes in, and it's been very plodding so far. I can't say this was an exciting match. We got a drop kick to the floor by Kazuchika Okada, and KENTA gets booted over the rail. But then KENTA reverses it, lands a dream killer over the rail. There's a ref bump 15 minutes in, back in the ring. Kendo stick gets involved. He whips Okada a bit with it. Okada fights back, gets rid of the kendo stick. He doesn't play like that. He drop kicks KENTA while he has the Defy title in his hand. That never really comes into play. That's very much a MacGuffin here. The title stays in the ring the entire time, but never comes into play. In the last 3 minutes, this is where KENTA lights up, starts striking Okada down with his huge open palm strikes, ripcord jumping knee, Busaiku knee. 2 minutes left. He lands back fists and a drop kick. Oh, sorry. Okada lands back fists and a drop kick. A landslide as well. KENTA sneaks out of a Rainmaker, but Okada lands the landslide again, and the Rainmaker connects. I don't know why they did the same finish twice without KENTA really getting any extra offense. And it was like landslide, oops, missed the Rainmaker. Okay, Okada goes back, and KENTA sort of tries to slink away, and another landslide and another Rainmaker. I don't know why we did it twice. Thankfully, this was a good last 3 minutes. The last 3 minutes are very, very energized and energetic because this had all the trappings of a snoozer KENTA match. I don't think this was particularly, especially for a main event, I don't think it was anything to write home about. I don't think it was great. I guess the work was fine, but a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of nonsense in this match. But there you go. Okada up there at 10 points, officially qualifying to be in the playoffs. Even if Ospreay wins his next match in 2 nights, he's going to tie Will at 10. He's going to tie Okada at 10, and Okada has the tiebreaker. It doesn't matter. They're both moving on. They both move on to the playoffs. So none of it really matters. It's just Okada will end up winning the block. So, as far as eliminations go here, the board got wiped here. There's all but 3 people that are still in the conversation. Like I said, Kazuchika Okada, he's confirmed he's moving forward. Will Ospreay's at 8. El Phantasmo's at 6. So it's really down to those 2 guys to see who's going to be the runner-up. So that's going to be the big match for Block B on August 6th. That's going to be tremendous. Because, again, I'll walk you through it once again. Will Ospreay, if El Phantasmo beats Will Ospreay, because he's fighting Will Ospreay on the last night, He'll get 8 points. We'll tie Will, but we'll have the tiebreaker. He will move on. Whereas if Ospreay wins, he gets his 10 points. It doesn't matter whether, who has the tiebreaker or not between Okada and Will. There's no one close enough then to challenge. That's all. Will Ospreay and Okada will be in the playoffs. But I think Phantasmo has a very good chance of making the playoffs. I think you'll be surprised at how ready Will Ospreay might be to put the guy over, because doesn't it kind of feel that Will Ospreay's putting a lot of guys over, as someone who's leaving the territory should be, right? Look, I'm not saying that it's happening. I'm not saying he's leaving, but I'm saying, this is suddenly very interesting. As for the rest of the block, look, Great-O-Khan we already knew was eliminated. And KENTA got eliminated by losing to Okada tonight, so he's also out of the conversation. Taichi is out. He has the tiebreaker on Will, but El Phantasmo has the tiebreaker on Taichi. Because don't forget, Taichi still has 6 points like El Phantasmo, right? And maybe you're like, well, Warren, he has the same amount of points as El Phantasmo. Why isn't Taichi still in this conversation? I'll tell you why. Because, like I said, Phantasmo has 6 points, but has the tiebreaker win over Ospreay. So, regardless of the result of Ospreay versus Phantasmo in a couple of nights, regardless of that result, Taichi is still out. Because look, let's say Taichi does win on August 6th. That would make him finish with 8 points. Let's say that happens. If Ospreay wins, he's at 10 points. Ospreay moves forward. That's it. If ELP wins, ELP is at 8 points, so ties with Taichi, but El Phantasmo has the tiebreaker on Taichi, so he'll move forward. So either way, Taichi is done. And it's the same for Tangaloa. He's got too many people up top who have a tiebreaker with him. So it's the same situation. YOSHI-HASHI also lost. He was also eliminated. So really, we're down to one match. So Block B on August 6th is all about one match happening. One match to rule us all, essentially. That's the one. There's one match that will determine the fate of the runner-up for Block B, and therefore qualifying for the playoffs. I'm down with that. I think that's exciting. I think that's good. We're going a little long today, so let's get into the recommendations. I will absolutely recommend Shota Umino versus Yota Tsuji to you. I think that was a tremendous match. It's absolutely the top one. I will give you Gabe Kidd and SANADA as well. I think those are two matches you should go out of your way to watch. And you know what? I know I spoiled the finish, right? Because that's kind of what we do. But if you want to see it in real time, and you won't be bored either if you watch Tangaloa versus Will Ospreay. I thought it was, the match is fine. The match is pretty good. I can't outright recommend it, but, I could recommend it just to see how good that finish was, because it really was a fantastic finish. And if you wanted to sit down and watch the entire show, you could. Like, it's not a bad night of pro wrestling. It's definitely better than night 10. It's not as great as night 5 or night 1, for instance. You're not going to have your mind blown throughout, but it's definitely a better night of pro wrestling. It's a good show that you can absolutely sit down and absorb. I thought it was pretty good. But if you're stripped for time, those are my recommendations right there. As it stands now for tomorrow in the G1 CLIMAX, we are heading over to Hiroshima for the final night of Block C and D action. And then after that, C and D will both have their own individual nights on August 8 and 9, respectively. On night 12 then, August 2nd, Mikey Nichols for C Block is going to be taking on Evil. Mikey Nichols is eliminated from the tournament, so the best he can hope to do here is spoil some stuff for Evil. Hinare versus Tomohiro Ishii, two guys who also are effectively out of the tournament. Tama Tonga versus Eddie Kingston. I'm excited to see how that one's going to go. And Shingo Takagi versus Dave Finlay. This is do or die for Shingo at this point. I mean, C Block is still highly contested, don't get me wrong, but it really is do or die for Shingo in this at this stretch of the tournament. And for D Block, we're going to have Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Alex Coughlin. Coughlin has been eliminated from the tournament. I would not be surprised that they try to keep Tanahashi in the conversation here. Shane Hayes will probably pick up another win over Toru Yano. Hiroki Goto versus Jeff Cobb is going to be very interesting. Again, the rib injury for Goto, we don't know how serious it is, but we'll see how that comes into play and how it comes into play in the decision here as well for Jeff Cobb. And Tetsuya Naito will be taking on Zack Sabre Jr. These guys have a lot on the line, and if I'm not mistaken, let's pull up Block D here on our standings for those of you who have the benefit of video right now. So right now, Zack Sabre Jr. is at 8 points and Naito is at 6. This is also a do or die situation for Naito if he wants to qualify. And I think, I'm still very much behind the Naito push to get to the finals here. Because the final night of Block D has Tetsuya Naito versus Hiroshi Tanahashi. So if Tanahashi scores, a win tomorrow, tomorrow. If he scores a win tomorrow, he's at 8 points. Tetsuya Naito is going to be at 8 points too. Zack Sabre Jr. is going to stay at 8 points, and we'll see what Jeff Cobb does. But I think we might be leading into Block D with a bunch of guys at 8 points. And I still think Tetsuya Naito is going to sneak into this. He's going to have that big comeback win. And after having a bit of a shaky start, that's usually his MO. And then he'll swoop in at the end and will qualify. Maybe not win the block, but at the very least qualify. And I think I think money should be bet on a Block D. On Block D, providing Tetsuya Naito and Zack Sabre Jr. into the playoffs. I think that's fairly safe. So we'll see what happens. There's absolutely going to be at least 2 people who are going to be eliminated on Block D when we speak once again tomorrow for another edition of the G1 CLIMAX 33 recap and review here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show stuff. So if you haven't already, consider liking and subscribing and reviews and ratings and all that good stuff wherever you may be watching or listening. I will be back a little, if you're listening to this on the Tuesday on August 1st, I will be back a little later on today with a live recording of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. So feel free to drop in on that. The replay will be available tomorrow. And I'll also be back tomorrow for the G1. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So whenever you decide to come back and join me, I'll see you next time.